Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack a story that feels, incredibly ancient, but is actually profoundly relevant to exactly how we're living our lives right now. It's a fable about mental clarity, a young guy, a wise elder, and a very simple glass of water. But beneath that simple narrative, there's a highly effective psychological grounding technique. We're going to break down exactly how this story works and what it can teach us about managing our own chaotic minds.
So let me ask you something. Is your mind a storm right now? Because the protagonist of our story today, a 24-year-old guy named Marco, lived literally every single day inside a relentless mental hurricane. His mind was just constantly churning. All day long, different ideas, anxieties, regrets, they just played on this endless loop. And if you've ever dealt with modern-day burnout, overthinking, or that feeling of just being stretched way too thin, you know exactly what Marco was experiencing.
Section 1. The Storm of Overthinking.
Okay, so this is where we really establish the baseline of Marco's struggle. He wasn't just, slightly distracted, he was fundamentally exhausted by his own brain. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly where that pain was coming from. He was being pulled in two completely opposite directions. On the one hand, deep sadness about the past, and on the other, relentless worry about the future. His mind was just constantly ping-ponging between what had already happened and what might happen next. So, what's missing here? The present. Because his mental energy was entirely consumed by yesterday and tomorrow, he was literally unable to find a single moment of peace today.
And man, the physical and emotional toll of this was severe. Marco's mental storm had real-world consequences. He couldn't sleep well. He couldn't feel calm. The story even notes that he literally forgot how to smile. I mean, this wasn't just a fleeting bad mood. This was a chronic state of unease that made him completely desperate for a cure. He needed an intervention, which is what leads him to seek out a legendary figure up in the mountains.
Section 2. The Psychologist's Water Challenge.
So Marco hears these rumors of a wise old man living in a faraway, quiet village in the hills. He takes on this incredibly long, exhausting journey, driven by the hope that this elder can somehow fix his broken, restless mind. Now, I want to pause here for a second, because this elder, sitting quietly on his greenery-covered porch, isn't just some mystical wizard dispensing magic spells. No. He's a former famous clinical psychologist from the city. He spent his entire career helping people find peace in their minds before retiring to nature. And that is a vital piece of context. It tells us that the advice he's about to give Marco isn't just, folksy wisdom. It's a grounded, highly practical psychological technique that's just disguised as a simple village task.
So, after finally reaching the village, Marco walks up to this serene old man and utters this incredibly vulnerable plea. He says, "Grandfather, my mind is very restless. I cannot stop thinking. I want peace in my heart. Can you help me?" It's a heavy request, right? But the old man just opens his eyes, gives a calm little smile, and instead of offering some long philosophical lecture, he invites Marco into his yard and gives him a physical task. Okay, so here is the exact exercise the former psychologist assigns to him. Step 1. Hold a glass of water filled completely to the very top. The water is so high that even the tiniest little shake is going to cause a spill. Step 2. Walk to the edge of the village and come back. And step 3. Do not spill even one single drop. It's absolute in its simplicity, but man, it is incredibly intense in its difficulty. The margin for error is literally zero. Marco's kind of surprised, but he accepts the challenge, and he takes the glass very carefully in his hands.
Section 3. Walking through the noise. Now, Marco has to navigate this living, breathing, totally chaotic environment while maintaining perfect physical equilibrium with this glass. And as he sets off, the environment instantly tests him. The village road is narrow and insanely busy. He's surrounded by constant movement, and, well, actually scratch that, it's not just movement, it's total sensory overload. People are walking and running past him, shopkeepers are aggressively yelling out to call in customers, children are darting around playing right on the side of the road, and dogs are barking everywhere. People are even stopping to stare at Marco in surprise as he inches along. It is the absolute perfect recipe for losing focus.
So the crucial point is, Marco spilled 0 drops. Exactly 0. Despite the yelling, the running, the barking dogs, and the staring crowds, he made it to the edge of the village and all the way back to the old man without a single drop hitting the dirt. Why? Because his eye stayed only on the glass. He walked slowly, carefully, step by step, totally locked in.
Section 4. The Secret of Now.
Marco proudly returns to the old man, just thrilled that he completed the physical challenge. But the psychologist isn't quite done with him yet. You see, the real lesson hasn't even been spoken.
He nods, smiles, and asks Marco two vital questions. Did you see the children playing on the side of the road? Did you hear the dogs barking? Marco is genuinely caught off guard. He answers honestly, "No, I didn't see or hear anything. I was only focusing on the glass." And right there, boom, the trap is sprung. The psychological lesson is finally revealed.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it perfectly decodes the old man's entire metaphor. He gently explains to Marco that what he just experienced was present moment awareness. When your mind is forced to stay entirely in the now, in this specific case, by the intense physical demand of not spilling the water, it completely eliminates the bandwidth for anything else. There is suddenly no space left in your brain for fear, no space for confusion, and zero space for those extra exhausting thoughts.
Let's compare where Marco started with where he ended up. Look at the storm clouds of the restless mind on the left. Before the walk, he was drained by sadness about the past and fear of the future. But compare that to the clear focus of the quiet mind on the right. During the walk, he was so intensely focused on the water that those past and future anxieties literally ceased to exist in his consciousness. The old man proved to Marco that his mind could be quieted. He just needed an anchor to the present moment.
And this leads us to the core wisdom of the fable, delivered just beautifully by the old man. Peace is not something we find outside. Peace is already inside us when we live in the present moment. Marco finally gets it. If he wants to calm his mind, he doesn't need to run off to some distant village. He just needs to anchor himself in the exact moment he is actually living in. The story ends with Marco walking home under the setting sun. The birds are flying back to their nests, and Marco is a completely changed man. He's peaceful inside, because he finally learned how to silence the storm.
Which leaves us with this final provocative question to think about. How will you carry your glass of water today? What task, what focus, what anchor can you use to pull your mind away from the regrets of yesterday and the anxieties of tomorrow and lock yourself entirely into the present moment? Find your glass of water, focus on it, and watch the storm in your mind quiet down.